Hey guys, we are back at it here with the 75 Harley SX250 Enduro project. This is part two in the video series. If you were watching part one, you got to see me take the fuel tank off, the carburetor, and the air box, just to kind of see what I'm getting myself into here. Carburetor was in pretty rough shape, as was the fuel tank. Right here. No rust holes that I could see at least, but there is some paint bubbling here, which has me kind of worried that there's some pinhole stuff going on under the paint. But time will tell once I get that soaked. But anyways, back to the bike. The goal for this video here is going to be getting some spark out of it. I have the workshop manual, and it's got pretty decent troubleshooting, step by step, what to do if this happens, what to do if that happens. Pretty straightforward troubleshooting stuff. So I'm going to follow along because I needed the wiring diagram for that for this bike. Just to make things a little easier. Probably could have figured it out, but I figured the book will save some time. So I did do a compression test on this. It came out to be about 78 PSI, which isn't great, obviously, but I've had bikes start with less than that, with like 75-ish. As I mentioned before, my DT2 started up with 75, and that thing runs pretty good. So it might just be that the rings were stuck a little bit. I'm hoping that will increase with a little bit more lube and possibly getting it to fire. And as always, I got to ask, if you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Leave me some likes, comment. Goes a long way in helping my channel, guys. I appreciate it, as always. Thanks a lot, and let's get started on this. So I'm going to start with the basic stuff first. Obviously, I'm going to take the spark plug wire off. This kind of threads off of here. And I'm going to just kind of cut back the wire a little bit for the cap, and also up here too, just to make sure I got good contact going to the coil to the plug. I got fresh wire on that side. I'm going to do the same on the cap end as well. Okay, got continuity now with the plug wire, just to make sure that's working okay. I'm going to put it back on just to see if I get lucky and get spark. So I'm still not getting spark after cleaning up the spark plug wire. So the next thing I'm going to do is check the ignition switch. And according to the manual, I have to disconnect the ground wire from the lug on the coil that goes to the switch. So it looks like in this case, according to the instructions here, I got to look for a blue wire, the BE, and disconnect that. And then try to give it a couple kicks again and see what happens. I'm gonna go by this diagram right here. So it looks like I got the violet, which the purple wires I did see. I see two of those. The BE wire, which is the blue, and then the black. So I'm gonna disconnect the blue. So here's the blue wires here that they're talking about, I think, in the manual. I'm gonna take these out. close these. All right, give it a couple more kicks now that this is disconnected, and we'll see what happens. So I'm still not seeing any spark after disconnecting the blue wire from the coil and also up at the switch. So the manual tells me to move over to the ignition module, which is right here. It's kind of in a rough spot. I don't want to try to take these bolts out because they'll probably break. So I'm going to leave it in place if I can. But I have to get to that red terminal, the red wire, terminal 1 it says. And I should be getting a ohms reading from that red wire to a good ground somewhere between 500 and 600 ohms. So I'm going to pull this one out right here. Pull that wire out and hook up a multimeter and see what I got. Hopefully that's not faulty or it gives me the correct readings. Hopefully it does, because apparently if that goes, it's the smaller coil that's behind the alternator. So I don't know if I have a flywheel puller for this bike, so hopefully that's not the case. I'm going to pull that off next and see what kind of readings I get. Let's see if I can get this in here without too much drama. Some pretty heavy corrosion on that wire there, on the spade connector. So I'm getting a value of roughly 180, which is a lot lower than 500 to 600. When I use a ground on the engine, saying I should see between 500 and 600, but I'm getting numbers all over the place. I'm getting 150. I saw it go up to 180 one time. That was 98. That's not a lot. 190 there. So I'm going to try a couple different grounds, clean up some bolts and use them as grounds and see if I get any other numbers, but hoping that's not the case, because I'll have to take off the flywheel to get to the other coil there. Let's try another bolt on the engine. I'm just going to clean another one up and see what kind of ground, or see what kind of connection I get on that ground. So while I was checking the resistance on this wire here, I noticed how corroded the connectors were in the connector on the ignition module itself too. So I'm going to take these out, give them a good cleaning on the wire end and on the prong, and try to test for spark again after that. Maybe it's just as simple as some corrosion on the connectors. I'm just going to check the numbering here on these. So I got 4, 2, 3, 3, and 1. So I know according to the manual, 1 is correct. That's the red one. I'm going by this right here. This is the ignition module. So 1 is red. 3 and 3 should be black. Black cable, black wires. 3 and 3, that's correct. 2 should be green, and that is also correct. And then violet, purple, is going to be on prong 4 there. It's probably kind of hard to see, but there's numbers that coincide with each of these on the module itself. A little worn away because this plastic is kind of breaking down a little bit, but I can see them on there. Take these out, clean up the connectors, and then test again. You can see there's a lot of corrosion on there. I'm gonna clean these up the best as I can. Get some sandpaper on there maybe, and then clean up these as well. And that'd be nice if that was the whole problem right there. Let's find out. All right, so I got the plugs back into the module. I had to make a couple extra or new plugs on the end for the wires because they were kind of mangled coming out of there, just rotting away. So I made a couple new ones of those, cleaned up the prongs, and kicked it over. Still don't have spark. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is try to test the coil just to make sure that that's working okay. So according to the manual, I need to disconnect the two leads that are on there, and then going to check for resistance here. So I am going to take those off and try that next. All right, according to the manual, I should just have to connect one side to one terminal and the other to the other side, and it should give me a resistance reading of, see, it looks like 0.5 ohms. .7. It's a little bit more than what the book calls for, but let's see here. Yeah, 0.7, 0.6. I'd say that's in spec. I'd say it's pretty close. All right, so that test was for the primary side of the coil. I'm going to do the secondary side, which is going to have me plug right into where the spark plug wire goes into, and test for resistance there too. Right, and it's telling me to, let's see here, connect the test lead to the spur contact inside the coil tower, and the other test lead to either threaded coil terminal to test secondary resistance. A value of about 2800 ohms should be attained. Okay, so I'm going to use this one for the inside prong. I can grab that. So it flashes up for a second. I'm getting about 1900. It's changing and fluctuating a little bit. So I don't even know if I'm doing this right, but let's see here. I'm getting 1400, 1900, 1800, 1900. It's fluctuating quite a bit. $1,400, $1,500. Okay. Well, it's giving me readings. I don't know how accurate my tool is, but it's at least giving me some numbers that are somewhat close, not dead on, but I would think I should see some spark there. Of course, it says to check the ignition module. If none of the above stuff that I just tried doesn't work, then it's recommended that the ignition module be replaced. Due to its internal circuitry, no conclusive test can be made other than substitution of this unit. Yeah, I'm not going to find one of those anywhere nearby, so I guess I'm going to try looking at it. The only part I didn't do was I didn't open up the side cover and look at the magneto under the flywheel or anything. I don't know if I can get that off. I think you need a special tool for that. And before I do all that, I'm just going to clean up these connections and the leads and everything on here just to roll it out. Just want to make sure everything's got a good clean connection before I start tearing into the flywheel and stuff. All right, so I cleaned up these terminals a little bit, just kind of wire brushed it, put these back on. Got the module hooked up with the new plugs on it, new connectors, I should say. And I'm going to test for spark one more time. I'm going to try this NGK. I know it's not the right plug, but it's a new one, and I know it will work. Let's see if I at least get something on here now. I'm going to turn the lights off a little bit so it'll be easier to see the spark. Let me get this lined up here. All right, so I'm going to get the light off and see if the camera. Some spark. This is the old plug too. See if it picks up here. Oh yeah, there is spark. All right, so we got spark. I'm going to turn my attention next to the other electrical components on here. I'm going to get rid of this battery, this old one here that came on it. Get this out of the way so I can look at the rest of the wiring harness here, and also the flasher relay, which is just kind of dangling here. Looks like it's rusted on there pretty good. And there should be a rectifier, I think, right up under here too. I think that's the rectifier. So just want to get that tidied up. I know it's not really necessary for it to run, but figured I'll get it cleaned up while the carburetor is soaking. I just have it soaking in some dish detergent and trying to break up some of the sludge that's on there before I try to take the rest of it apart. Looks like the float is actually moving now, which is good, because that was completely locked on there before. So I'm hoping to be able to get the pilot jet out and the float valve, which I'm sure is cemented in there. So I'm gonna let that soak some more. Seems like it's doing a pretty good job. And then once that's all out, I'll do a more thorough cleaning and then try to get it into my friend's ultrasonic. But for now, I'm gonna let that soak, move it off to the side, and continue on with the electrical system. Get this crusty old battery out of the way here first. It's pretty crusty. Mostly for the lights. This is the flasher relay. That was just kind of hanging there. Check the fuse in here. It's ground. It's a regulator, I think. Got a good fuse. Turning my attention back to the carb here, I'm going to try to get a couple more pieces off that I've been letting this thing soak the last few hours, trying to loosen some of it up. So the float actually looks to have loosened up because that wasn't moving at all before. So I'm going to try to pull out this pin here and get to the float valve. Let's see if I have any luck with this now. Oh yeah, it's actually coming out. Sweet. Just as I suspected, that valve is stuck in there pretty good. I'm gonna try to get the floats off here, not messing anything up. Should just pop off like that. Still some gunk on there. Oh yeah. I might just let this sit out of the tank I had it sitting in to soak and just kind of, I might just let some PB Blaster sit on top of that and try to work its way down. Let that sit overnight. Because I don't think that's going to come out very easily. Yeah, I'm going to let that soak even more, probably overnight again. Just throw some PB Blaster down on that, and I still haven't tried to do the pilot jet here again. I'm almost afraid to. So let's see, maybe if I can. That's kind of messed up looking there too. That was not me that did that. So I'm afraid to take these off, but I'm going to have to try it at some point. But I'm going to let the PB Blaster do its thing. Sit on top of that. I might put some coil down in there actually, because I do have a little bit of that somewhere. And see if I can get this broken free. See if this float actually floats. Looks good. Don't hear anything in the float, so that's a good sign, and it actually does float, so we're good there. All right, so this car's been soaking for the last few days, and I still ended up having to order a float valve seat and a float valve itself, just because it got stuck in there, and there was no way I'm getting that out of there. I tried soaking it in PB Blaster, tried Croil on there, and it's just cemented in, plus the top part kind of chipped off a little bit, so found one online, and it's on its way, so I'm just waiting for those parts to come in, and also got an O-ring and gasket set for the carburetor too, so a couple spots where there's little O-rings or washers that go into some of these spots, so I figured might as well replace all those while I have it apart. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to turn my attention back to the cosmetic side of the bike while I wait for those to come in. So the chrome actually turned out pretty nice on the front wheel. Let me show you. That was just a quick polish, and I used the real soft wire brush on the rust there, and it actually came pretty clean. I mean, it's not perfect because some of that is pitting. You're not going to be able to do anything about that unless you get the wheels re-chromed. But I don't know if he wants to take it that far. But anyways, just a little bit of elbow grease and a wire brush actually got that pretty clean. So I'm gonna hit up some of the other chrome spots on here. There's a little bit up on the fork tube and around the beauty ring on the headlight. So I'll do the rear rim, see what that looks like after I'm done with it. Should be a pretty big difference. It'll really go a long way in helping the looks of the bike here. And I'll also be tackling that fuel tank as well. So figured now's a good time since I can't really move ahead with the carburetor the way it is. So let's make it shiny. So these came out pretty good. There's still some pitting in there, which, as I mentioned before, there's not much to be able to do with that. But for the most part, all the heavy rust is off, and at least on the rim part, looks pretty decent compared to what it looked like before. That's the back. Let me show you the front. Front's had a little bit less heavy stuff on it, but there's still some pitting on there too. But might try to do the spokes with a wire wheel. I'm not sure yet if I got time, but pretty happy with how those came out. I'm still going to do the fork area here and up on the headlight, as I mentioned before. And spring has a little bit of rust on there too. I'm going to try to knock some of that off. But pretty decent for a little bit of elbow grease and a wire brush. Not bad. All right, I'm gonna try to get this petcock off here and see if this is something we can reuse, or might be hunting for one of these too. I don't know. Let's see, I had some lube sitting on here for a little while. Hopefully that made its way down in there. Hopefully this pops off without too much drama. Yikes. Here we go. Doesn't look too bad, actually. It'd be nice to be able to reuse this petcock and not have to try to hunt one down. Not sure how available they are for this bike. A lot of powder in there. Be as gentle as possible with these pieces here. I'm surprised it's in this good a shape. So I'm thinking I can soak this. Might be able to reuse it here. None of the stuff looks horrible on the inside. Usually like this is all completely worn away, but it still has its shape. It's not brittle. And the inside is just kind of crusty. So also the filter that's on here and the screen isn't completely ripped apart and clogged up 100% like you normally see them, but I might try to reuse this. That would be a big plus. Get this off of here first. I think I'm going to just soak this and reuse it, hopefully. See how that goes. Got everything opened up, it doesn't look too bad. Worth a try. Well, unfortunately, after popping one of those little paint bubbles just to see how bad the rust was underneath, there is actually pretty decent sized holes in here. A little bit bigger than pinholes. So I don't know if sealing that's gonna really help. It wouldn't help with this one at least. Maybe these smaller ones it could do, but that bigger one there, I don't think sealant could plug that hole up. And I'm sure there's more. I just don't want to start picking around on here too much. I just wanted to see what was underneath these really bad looking ones. I'm sure these ones are also holes. But so I guess I'll send some pictures over to my buddy, see what he wants to do with this. He's probably going to want to get that repaired, I'm sure. Unfortunately, it's probably going to ruin the paint in that area. So we'll see what he wants to do there. I'm just going to put this off to the side now. There's no point in me soaking anything in there right now. Next up, I'm going to get the throttle assembly apart here so I can see why it's frozen still. My assumption is there's probably rust up in the cable area here, and there may be some junk up in the throttle housing, so we're going to find out. That was on there pretty good. My guess is there's probably a lot of rust on the cable area here. Oh, cable snapped. Wonderful. That's why it wasn't moving. Great. Yeah, that's rusted solid on there. Okay, guess I need to get a cable for this too. So I guess I'm gonna have to look for this section of cable. It goes from the housing down to the splitter. One goes to the pump and the other one goes to the carburetor. So I think I just need this top part. Hopefully I can buy just that. So I'm gonna do a little searching online, see what I can come up with. And hopefully I can find one on eBay or something. All right, guys, I think that's where we're gonna leave off on this week's video. The main goal was accomplished. We got spark, so that's a good thing. However, the fuel tank, unfortunately, is unusable in its current condition. It's got some rust holes in it, and it's a little bit too much to try to seal. So I let the owner know, and he's gonna make the decision on what he's gonna do after we confirm that the engine runs good, and before he puts any kind of money into a new tank or trying to get it repaired, just want to make sure it runs. But can't do that until we get the carburetor back together. Just waiting for the float valve seat and the float valve itself to come in the mail, and also a new throttle cable. So once that's back on, I can at least hook up a fuel tank to it and just get some gas to it, see if it'll run and how well it runs. And also got a couple spark plugs coming for it too, ones that are in spec for this bike. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for me. Leave me some likes, comments. That goes a long way in helping me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.